Welcome to the CMO Chapter podcast, where we dive deep into the dynamic world of Chief Marketing Officers. Join us as we explore the careers, insights, and strategies of top marketing executives who shape the brands we know and love. Whether you're a seasoned marketer, aspiring CMO, or simply just curious to understand what it really takes to step into the shoes of a CMO. This podcast is your backstage pass to discovering what it's like to really lead and innovate in the ever-evolving landscape of business. Stay tuned as we uncover the stories of the visionaries behind the brand. I am delighted today to welcome Natalie Truong to my podcast. Welcome.
Thank you, Lucy. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I'm very excited about having you on this particular podcast because I feel like there's going to be a lot here that you're going to be able to share. And I'm quite excited to hear what you've got to say. So no pressure. Fingers crossed. So Natalie, should we start? Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks again, Lucy, and hi, everyone. Introduce myself. Okay. After graduating from uni, I guess I worked in the travel industry for a while. You know, like many young people, I'm so passionate about seeing the world, but then I quickly realized travel doesn't pay very much. So I made my move into corporate life. And I guess since then I've worked in B2B, B2C. I've worked across a variety of different industries, Lucy. Prof services, fin services, super telco. And I also have loved, given my travel bug, I've loved working across Australia, New Zealand, Asia, and then recently, the Middle East and Africa, which fascinating markets once again.
Amazing.
Yeah. So I guess I've, held senior roles across two of the big four banks, ANZ and then Westpac with Bank of Melbourne, and then worked for CPA Australia, so a membership professional association, which I loved as well, and then Mercer, and then now I'm at EY. So yeah, enjoying it.
Excellent. So CMO at EY currently. Okay. Now, am I right in thinking you've been at that sort of CMO remit now for what is it, about 4 years, 5 years?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm curious to understand. The one thing that I have various conversations with at certainly senior management level is how do I get to that top spot? What have other people done? How do I then navigate my career and, get to that CMO, remit? Was that hard for you to make that step?
Not hard as such, Lucy, but I guess I've got a couple of suggestions for people trying to make that transition.
Mhm.
And I guess I'm sharing this from experience of what I've got friends who are going through, that similar, trying to work out how do they make that transition. I guess for me, I've never like people. I've just started tap dancing, so I relate everything to tap dance. It's something I've always wanted to do. I did it before COVID, but then I moved overseas, and then I've come back, and I'm trying to get back into the tap dancing, but I don't think it has to be a linear climb. I think that's the mistake people make is I start off as a marketing coordinator, then move to executive, senior executive, etc. My career hasn't been like that. It's been more of a dance. Like it's never been a straight line. I just have never seen myself just working my way up in one company or doing one type of job. In marketing, when I was a lot younger, I just did everything, Lucy. Whatever people said, oh, can you run the print team? I'd be like, yep, no problem, I'll run that. Or can you do events? And I'm like, yep, I've no idea half the time what I was supposed to be doing, by the way. But just gave it a go because I really wanted to just, understand. I knew where I wanted to get to. I knew I wanted to be in marketing, for a career or for a profession. But I wanted, by the time I got to that level, Lucy, I wanted to make sure that I'd done everything that I would expect my teams to do. And then I got great advice from a CMO once to say, hey, you've just got to learn to do everything because you don't want to get there and then someone tries to pull the wool over you because you didn't do digital or you didn't do events. So I was like, oh, that's great advice. I'm going to go and do that. That's my first thing, is to try and do as much as you can. I guess the second piece of advice for senior managers is not to rush, Lucy. And I guess I'll go back to my first point. I've got some friends, we started out together in great marketing roles as junior kids, and
Uh-huh.
They all rushed off into these great big CMO roles really early on in their career, and they went into smaller companies. Not that there's anything wrong with the smaller companies, but I think they rushed too quickly to get that CMO title, and they didn't have the experience. And now, a couple of them are saying to me, "Oh, I really want to go and work overseas," but they're not in big companies because they're now
Yeah.
CMOs, and in big companies, as you know, there's one CMO and a whole bunch of roles underneath it that you really need the
Hands on. Yeah.
experience of before they will appoint you a CMO. So I think for senior marketers, don't rush. You're going to get, if you're good, you're going to get there. So stick it out in a
Uh-huh.
big firm, stick it out in a small, there's no bad roles, but just don't go after the CMO role if you're only like, 8 or 10 years into your career. I just think it's too soon a move.
Uh-huh.
And then I guess my final piece of advice or suggestion is to think outside of marketing. Like, I can't tell you the number of leaders that I've met who are brilliant at marketing, but don't understand the business and don't understand what's happening in the
Yeah.
business world. And I think that's absolutely critical. I mean, I'm mentoring some junior marketers now, and they don't understand the financials. They're like, "Why do I have to learn marketing operations?
Yeah.
Someone else would do that." I'm like, "Wow, marketing operations is how you work. How you build your team, how you get them running efficiently." So I think all of those roles are really critical.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. I think you summarized that really well. I think, one common theme that I definitely get is that at the end of the day, whether you're GM, CMO, executive director of, you're not now necessarily just looking after marketing. It's the whole gamut, it's the functions. You've got to be across your
Yeah.
finances, your data, as I said, budgets, operations. It's massive. And it can be a massive learning curve, to be thrown in that ocean at the beginning. It's kind of sink or swim. When we talk about, I guess, trends, and we're all talking about, as we know, AI at the moment, it's the big thing. But for any of those sort of mid managers or anyone, as I said, that's looking to one day get in your seat, what advice would you give them in terms of, what insights or trends do you see coming through that you probably say, look, you need to really get engaged across this, or, any sort of courses even or resources that you'd recommend?
Yeah. I got asked this very question yesterday. I don't know if it was
There you go.
one of your people planting that seed, but I got asked, "Hey, AI going to take all of our jobs?" And I
Yeah.
guess my response, and I heard it, and I can't remember who I heard it from, but I thought it was fascinating advice and really sage advice in that if you don't use AI, you will lose your job to someone who is using AI, in
Yes.
my opinion.
Yeah.
So, regardless of whether you're in we call it BMC here at EY, so it's the brand marketing and comms team. Doesn't matter which part of that function you're in, I think you all need to use AI in some way, shape, or
Yeah.
form because it doesn't take away from what you're doing. It actually helps to your creativity, it helps to the idea, um, creation, etc. So, absolutely learn AI, learn as much of it as you can, and use it as much as you can.
Mhm.
I think some of the other things or the skills or the experience that I would suggest for some of their senior managers is to get cross-functional knowledge. It's
Mm.
the one thing I learned, later in my career. So as I was making that transition, a CEO said to me, "I've put you on the leadership team not just to talk about marketing." I'll never forget it. I thought, in those leadership teams, it was one of my first forays onto, and I thought, "Oh, well, if it's not to do with marketing, I'm not going to speak up." And she said,
Yeah.
"No, I mean, I want you, because you're in marketing, you have a different perspective on our problems, our business. So I want you to talk. Even, you're not going to sound silly because you're coming from a very different perspective than my
Yeah.
CFO or my, HR director or my business leader. So I'll never forget that advice is please go out and get cross-functional knowledge. Learn about the different parts of the business, take on projects. I put my hand up for all
Yeah.
projects that have nothing
Yeah.
to do with marketing, only because I was interested in learning more about the business. And I guess the other thing is to try and work in global teams or take on global opportunities. It
Mm.
really helps you to understand the culture. Lucy, I can't I wish I did it when I was younger, if I'm honest with you. I wish I'd
Okay.
taken on more of those global opportunities when I was younger. I mean, the hours are brutal, but while you're young, you can still do it, I guess. Now I need my sleep too much, so it's a bit more
Me
difficult.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
In what way? Like when we talk about the global opportunities, it's interesting because I, as a recruiter, have met a lot of individuals that have been in that world and sort of say, yeah, it's been amazing, but uh, like, we're sort of at the mercy of the head office in California or wherever it may be.
Yeah.
And we just get to localize whatever they do. What benefits have you found when you've been in those sort of global environments?
So they're absolutely correct. Great benefits in that a brand halo is created at the global level. Benefits from a synergistic perspective. So operationally, things are set up for you, so it's not so hard. And obviously, there are some really um, downsides of a global organization. So my I guess my suggestion is to try and find the right global company, which I absolutely found in Mercer. Great global support, and I'll never forget my global CMO. They taught me so much about my global CMO there, Jed Quinn, who is a phenomenal CMO. He came in, and I remember he just basically pulled resourcing out of global teams and put them into local teams, and really taught me how to think globally about how a global marketing team should operate. I guess I should clarify though, Lucy, my point about working in global teams or global opportunities. I actually think you should go and go overseas or work for APAC roles,
Yeah.
because the
Mm,
experience, the cultural experience, the business experience you get from working in those different environments is so far better than anything that I think you could get here. An example of what I'm talking about in Australia, and not discounting Australia, it's an amazing place to be because we're so part of the APAC. But you might only have one or two brands in Australia that are competing against each other, right? You go to Asia, and that same category, there's 15 brands that are competing in that one category. So just learning to navigate something like that,
mhm,
I just think
mm.
that experience is invaluable for down the track.
Oh, huge.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And I think early on in that career, navigating through, the layers of stakeholders, it's such a huge learning
yeah.
curve, I think. And you can be great at marketing, but I think it's sometimes, I almost often call it like being in the corporate Game of Thrones.
Winter is often coming, Lucy.
Yeah. Kind of, I mean, perhaps not as scary as that, not always, but yeah, I think it's learning how to sort of, be diplomatic very much at more of the earlier stages within your career, I think, and having that emotional intelligence, knowing how to read a room pretty quickly as well.
Yeah, completely agree. And learning how to navigate different business environments, I find has been invaluable for me, Lucy. Yeah.
Yeah. When you look back at your career, I mean, it's not we've all had, a little bit of a bumpy road here and we've kind of gone, oh, okay, that didn't feel right. I've made another move and I've gone here instead. Can you sort of share any, I guess, challenges that you've faced within your career and I guess how you've overcome them to be like a better leader?
Oh my God, I've got so many. I've made so many. I mean,
How long have
honestly,
you got?
my mistakes, I think, are well documented. Uh, I was like a terrible first time manager, Lucy. Like, I think I was the worst first time
Oh, really?
manager. And I guess I was the worst because I came from I played sport basically my whole life, Lucy. So, and I played individual sport. So, being an individual contributor to leading a team, oh God, I fumbled my way through that for years. And the mistakes that I made, I used to lead a team in a call center, made mistakes in there, and then, you know, leading, moving from there into leading a team of marketers, a couple of marketers made giant mistakes there with first time, trying to do everything, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, the best advice I ever got, Lucy, was from a CEO who said to me, as an individual contributor, you'll do this much. You can,
Hmm.
let's say you can do 5 out of the 10 things that I give you, but if you want to do the 10 things that I'm going to give you to get you to achieve, you are going to have to learn to
Mm,
either love leading a team, or you're going to have to learn to find a new career and choice because,
Mm,
moving through marketing and becoming a CMO, because I told him that's what I wanted to do, um, you're going to have to learn to lead teams. And so I've just spent so much of my time caring less like I used to as marketers. We are so passionate about the creativity, should have been blue, should have been purple.
yeah.
I got to a point where I'm like, you know what, team, if you're happy with blue, we'll go with blue. But if you want pink,
Go with it.
let's go with fuchsia pink. Not that fussed anymore. Creatively, I've stopped trying to battle those things. I mean, there are big creative decisions you need to make. And I got to make some of those when I was at Bank of Melbourne and then at Mercer. But, arguing over stock or paperweight or colors and things
Mhm.
like that, you just learn to go, I can control the things I'll control, but the things I cannot control, I'm just going to smile my way through it. And if my team's
Yeah.
happy, I'm happy.
And you're right. I think it's an interesting point because I've heard that a few times actually when I've asked this question that it's when you're a first time manager, there's no instruction book that comes with that. And I remember it myself when, I was leading a team and I remember just thinking, okay, I'm just going to try and do this. And I really was, when you kind of like painting the smile on, but underneath you like paddling like crazy and just, learning how to do your job, but also then manage a team and, make sure they're in the right direction. But yeah, you're right. I think it's really hard because you're still trying to sort of, I guess, develop yourself within that role at that time. Were you given any did you have any mentors or, any decent like managers or directors at that time that you would say really helped you get to where you are as well?
Yeah. And I want to, do you mind if I just come back to that? Because you said something just then that made me
Yeah,
also
sure.
remember it's not just a craft, like it's not just doing the job, Lucy. It's also then, like you said, working on yourself. So one of the things that I'm still working on and I still struggle with sometimes is the communication style. And as your
Mhm.
teams grow, obviously people have different communication styles in that team. And so it's so important. Like I'm such a direct, I'm open, I'm transparent. I've grown up in a family where if we disagree, it's like all out World War III for 5 minutes. We just go at each other. Giant Asian family, and so we go at each other, and then the next thing, we're sitting down to a bowl of rice and a 6-course banquet. So just learning that sort of style, Lucy, I think as your teams grow, learn to develop your communication skills and style and learn to flex, I think is really
Mm,
important. And going back to your question just now, I've met some phenomenal leaders. I've had the privilege of working with incredible leaders. And I guess for me, I say this all the time, I choose my leaders. I'm not fussed. If
mm,
you look at my CV, I didn't rush into big titles. I worked for an amazing leader in Jack Phillips at Bank of Melbourne, and I was with her at ANZ as well. I then worked for Jed Quinn, an amazing leader, global CMO for Mercer. I had
mm,
and still do an incredible coach and mentor and sponsor in Renee McGowan, who's the CEO
yeah.
of Mercer in the Middle East, Asia, and Africa. So yeah, just choosing leaders carefully is what I pride myself on, I guess, because if your leader is the right person, the role and the job and the company is going to be amazing. You just got to choose
Well,
the right leader.
and it sounds easier said than done though, doesn't it? Because, as a recruiter now, I mean, I have many conversations with individuals who, unfortunately they did have the right leader and perhaps they don't anymore, or there's been, there's been a restructure or whatever. And there is that saying that people don't leave jobs, they leave managers,
Yeah,
or shall we say leaders.
yeah,
I don't know, like, I mean, what advice? It's hard because I know when we talk about interviews, I always say, well, you're interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing
yeah.
you. Is it just knowing what questions to ask?
It's a good one because I often remind candidates of that. I'm like, you have to like me. Like, it's not just about me
Yeah,
liking you, by the way. We have to like
100%.
each other,
Yeah.
right? When it comes to leaders, I guess for me, I try and get a sense. of whether or not they, because of my direct style,
Mm.
and I love to just get stuff done, I try and get a sense of whether or not they feel motivated or they feel energized by some of the tough questions I might ask them, as opposed to do they feel a bit intimidated, I guess, by the questions
Mm.
that I
Mm.
ask. So I'm really upfront. So if the role is about, the team's not working or the culture in the team's not working, I'm really upfront about them. The questions I'll ask, do you have appetite for the change?
Mm.
Are you looking for a cultural change, or are you looking for me to come in and just continue what I'm doing? So I also try and make it clear to the people interviewing me that
Mm.
it's not going to be, BAU when I come in. It's just not me. That there are some roles that you require a BAU leader, and you require a leader that can help change things incrementally. That's just not
Uh-huh.
me. I am, I guess I love the transformation work. I love doing big pieces of work, and I love, creating cultures and teams that, I guess, high performing and in a short space of
Yeah.
time. I don't feel like a lot of companies have time now to let you run a transformation program over 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
So you have to be
Yeah.
able to move quickly. So yeah, I think it's really important as you interview and that you're really clear about what you want to do and the piece of work you want to do and the value it drives for the business, as opposed to I
Mhm.
just want to come in and be a great marketer and do some pretty campaigns, right?
Yeah.
Your leader needs
Yeah.
to have the same appetite, because if they don't, there's a huge mismatch, and you may as well just be open and honest in that interview process so that you do find the right leader, Lucy. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's so important just to be, fairly upfront about that. 100%. When we look at the sort of traits, I mean, it might be a bit of a broad sort of question to ask, but what are when you look at successful CMOs or even CMOs around you that you highly regard,
Yeah.
what common characteristics do you think that they have that make them successful?
It's a great question. But they are relentlessly curious. We
Love
will
it.
speak. One of the things I love doing is speaking to executive recruiters like yourself, because I want to understand, what are you hearing and seeing in the market? What are you seeing in terms of the talent pipeline that's coming through? Because one of the things as a CMO, I'll go back to my earlier point, you can't do everything. So you have to rely
Yeah.
on teams and people to help you deliver on pieces of work. So relentlessly curious, always looking to speak to great executive recruiters like yourself, going to conferences, speaking to as many people as possible, I think is one of the traits I see.
Mhm.
Great CMOs that I know, they recruit diverse talent. Like, they've got a
Yeah.
really good knack at recruiting exceptional people, and I love
Mm.
this about some of the CMOs that I know, that they recruit people smarter than them at the things that they're not so smart at. And it's one of the things that I love to do. People are like, oh my God, that person you want to recruit, they're so different to you. I'm like, that's exactly why we need them. We do not need another Natalie inside this team, right? So yeah, the great CMOs I know have just diverse teams of talent, and I really admire that.
Yeah.
I guess the other thing is that great CMOs I know how to have difficult conversations. That they don't wait to give feedback at the end of the year and go, "Oh, surprise! Hey, Lucy, how?"
Yeah.
They really know how to have great difficult conversations. They know how to set the expectations so that
Mhm.
those
Mhm.
conversations aren't difficult, and they know how to do everything they can to help the teams be successful and to help those leaders be successful. So yeah,
Yeah. 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 Brilliant. I think you're right. It's having that ability just to encourage, and support. And as you said, like, not be afraid to have those tough conversations and leave it right till the end of year.
yeah,
Exactly right. When we talk about personal brand, I mean, I look at you, you've again, been on panels and judges and, I see you present. I mean, the first time you got into, becoming that individual, I mean, a lot of people would look at somebody like yourself in that sort of like ivory tower and go, oh my gosh, like, I really want to become a leader, but, it's so scary to sort of get to, becoming that. I mean, how did that happen? Were you approached or did you just, go, well, I'm going to start to put my name forward for stuff, I mean.
Oh, it's a very funny story actually. And the first time I delivered, and you can see, I think Emma still got it on her website, but Emma Roberg, who is the CEO and founder of the B2B Marketing Leaders Forum,
Yes.
gave me my first option. I don't even think Emma gave it to me. She was like left. I was like second choice for her, if I'm honest. But so I just started at Mercer. Emma invited Renee to come and speak at the conference. Renee wasn't available and said, "Hey, you absolutely need to speak to Natalie." So then Emma proceeded to grill me on the phone for 20 minutes before trying to get a understanding of what I was going to talk about. At that point, I was a young person still excited about joining Mercer and this brand. And Emma's like, she wanted to, and this is why I love Emma's conferences. She grills everyone. She wants to know what you're going to get on and talk
Mm-hmm.
about in terms of either
Mm-hmm.
a panel or whatever, because she wants to know that what you're saying is going to be relevant to her audience. And so
Yeah.
I remember going on for the first time, my heel got stuck in the stage. I was reading off notes and I was like, oh my God, this cannot be the last thing that people Google and see of me. So from that point on, it's
Brilliant.
practice, 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 prepare.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, this podcast I've spent, days thinking about what conversation can we have together, Lucy, so that we can add value to your audience, to make sure
Mm-hmm.
we're giving
Mm-hmm.
your audience, the things that will be of interest and of value to them. So I certainly don't take anything lightly. And I think
Yeah.
the minute I get asked to do something and I'm not nervous or I don't prepare, I think that's when I'm going to stop, Lucy, because then I just don't really care about it
Yeah.
anymore. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
all of those people out there, fumble your way through it until ask anyone. I've had podcasts where I've been speaking for 5 minutes and there's no volume. I've been on webcasts where there's, I've sworn on webcasts and, live webcasts. So,
Brilliant.
yeah.
I love it. I love it. Be yourself.
Yes, be yourself and
Um,
practice. And if you have, when it happened on stage, I was in a pair of heels. I just left my heel there. I just took my heels off and just kept talking. I just went, what's the worst that can happen, right? Either I'm stuck there
Yeah.
and it looks awkward, or actually I can just see what happens.
Hobble on.
And I've done presentations where I've stood there and read notes. It's been terrible,
Yeah.
Lucy. I've had, but you learn from it and you look back and you go, no. But if I'm still, practicing off notes these days, I would be really upset with myself. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Is there any books or courses or, I don't know, people that you follow that you would recommend that our listeners get amongst, that, you have as real kind of influencers or, experts that, you highly regard?
Yeah, look, I am a huge fan of Thomas Barter. He runs the Marketing Masterclass. I went and saw him once at a conference, and when he spoke at that conference, I just went, wow, the way that
Yeah.
he
Okay.
thinks
Mhm.
about marketing leadership. And it's the first time I'd seen that sort of perspective. He talks to marketers, you have to understand the business. And I saw him present a long time ago, which is why I started pivoting to understanding business. And so he said, you're fine to be a marketing leader. That's great. Develop your marketing career, but you have to be the best marketing leader in business, because you have to understand that business.
Yeah.
So I,
Yeah.
I really enjoy Thomas's work. I really enjoy Jim Stengel's work. He does some
Okay.
great he was the CMO for P&G for 7 years, the global CMO, and he interviews some of the most fascinating marketers. So I really enjoy listening to Jim. And then in terms of books, I am a sucker for, I don't know what it is, but I'm a sucker for rugby. I'm reading I really am. Like I read Legacy, and I really love that. And then I'm currently reading Dan Carter's book on the art of
Okay.
winning.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for, I just think their discipline, their discipline is
Mm.
just amazing. But I love Kim Scott, Radical Candor. I've loved, and I've also gifted Leaders Eat Last with Simon Sinek.
Okay.
Yeah. So some great books there.
Excellent.
Yeah. I'm always reading, listening, or watching something, Lucy.
Brilliant. Yeah, I'm kind of the same actually. So tap dancing and rugby. What a combo.
I know. I think I don't know, I spend all my time talking, so I figured I'd try a dance where you don't need to speak. Let your feet speak.
Exactly. Why not? And I guess finally, from me, I mean, how do you define, I guess, success as a marketing leader beyond, I guess, looking at metrics and numbers? When we look at legacy and making, that impact,
Mm.
what would you say?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it really made me sit back and think about I think for me, maybe a couple of things, Lucy. I think for me, it's did I help build a culture of a team where people had joy and pride coming to work? Did we do work that people are still talking about
Mhm.
years later? I guess that's the first thing for me. And I guess the second thing for me, which makes me really proud, and people often go, oh, surely the campaigns, but it's not for me. I'm so proud of the number of marketers that I've developed to become leaders. So
Uh-huh.
I always say to the team, I want you to leave me, but you better leave me for something better. Because if you leave me for something less or equivalent, I'm going to be really annoyed. I want you to, like, if you're a marketing coordinator, I want you to leave me because you got a senior
Yeah.
role or a senior executive
Yeah.
role somewhere. If you're a head of, I want you to leave me because you're now looking after APAC and not just Australia. So my, I think for me, the satisfaction and the pride I feel is the number of leaders that we've developed, because we need more great marketers to lean in and sit at that business leadership table. Yeah. And
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow, what a conversation. I have thoroughly enjoyed listening to you. It's just been really, I think, quite inspiring. And I think, as I said, someone was, I did a recent episode actually on my podcast, and Nicola Clement actually mentioned it, and she's so right. Don't believe everything you see on LinkedIn. And I think, I'll say that again. I think people look at, that, CMO title and get, you've been in that spot for a long time. It can be quite intimidating and
mm,
daunting. And I think, what you've done has been very much yourself, and I think very authentic, and you've just really been honest around your experience. So thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
thank you so much for having me, Lucy.
Remember, the road to CMO isn't always linear. It's filled with challenges, decisions, and moments of transformation. Whether you're charting your course or navigating a career shift, the experiences, wisdom shared today, as with our guests, is invaluable. Thank you for joining us. Keep dreaming big, keep pushing boundaries, and remember that your journey towards becoming a CMO is as much about the destination as it is about the growth you experience along the way. Until next time, continue to innovate, evolve, and carve out your path to CMO.